Do you believe in coincidences? Once something strange happened in this small Russian town. Some people thought it was just a coincidence, but others were certain that there was something more terrifying involved. There was a girl who lived with her parents at a pig farm. Let's just call her Alina. Alina's house was next to an old man who never spoke to anyone. But whenever Alina would be outside in the fields, she noticed this man staring at her. This made her feel really creeped out. But one night, things escalated into something terrifying. It was very late when Alina heard strange scratching noises on her bedroom window. She got up and turned on the light and screamed in terror. There was a huge pig banging at her window. Then from the top, it tried to pull itself up and into Alina's room. Alina jumped out of bed and her parents rushed in. The pig attacked Alina and tried to bite her, but Alina's father ended up striking it in the back with an axe to defend his family. Finally, the pig jumped out the window and escaped into the night. But the next morning, the unimaginable happened. Something no one can explain. The strange neighbor was found in the woods with an axe in his back, and Alina and her family never told anyone about what happened the night before, except when the unimaginable was there. If you want a tan this summer, don't do what she did. Once there was a young woman who hated how pale she was, so she came up with an idea to get the perfect tan. But she could have never known the horrifying consequences her idea would lead to. She tried to go to all the tanning salons near her, but they would only allow her to tan for 30 minutes at a time. So she booked one session and afterwards thought that she still looked really pale. That's when she came up with the idea. She would book 30-minute appointments in every tanning salon in her city, back to back. She spent the next 4 days going from one tanning salon to another, and she finally began to see a difference. But this wasn't enough for her. So she went to a store and bought a special brand of tanning lotion. This lotion was made to increase your skin's sensitivity to light. She thought this would help her get the perfect tan. So she put it all over herself and let it soak. Then she made another set of tanning appointments. Later that day, the staff at the local tanning salon noticed the smell of something burning. They went to investigate and was horrified to find one of the tanning beds had caught fire. That's where the woman was found. She had literally cooked herself alive inside the tanning bed. Never play this game with your friends. Once there was a group of girls who heard about the game Baby Blue. They didn't believe in it but thought they could scare their friend Laura. So they sent Laura into a bathroom by herself. She turned off the lights, closed the door, and put her arms out as if to hold a baby. Then started chanting Baby Blue, 13 times. What happened next cannot be explained. Laura felt a heavy weight in her arms. Then she felt the weight in her arms scratching her. She was terrified and didn't know what to do. She wanted to drop it, but she was afraid of what might happen if she did. So she froze, and the weight grew heavier and heavier. Suddenly, she saw a woman in the bathroom mirror with a twisted look on her face. She screamed in terror. When her friends heard her scream, they tried to open the door, but it was locked. When they finally opened the door, they found Laura on the floor. Her eyes had been scratched out. They tried to move her body, but they couldn't, because something large and invisible was pinning her to the ground. Do you style your hair the same way every day? Well, there's an urban legend about a woman who always wore her hair in a bun. But for her, this habit would lead to something terrifying. This woman loved wearing her hair in a bun, but she might have taken it a bit too far. She didn't want to style her hair differently, or even take out her bun to clean her hair. Whenever she took a shower, she would just wear a shower cap to make sure the water didn't mess up her bun. At night, she would sleep with a towel around her hair so the bun didn't move. After a while, she had to put hairspray in it to mask the smell. Then her scalp started feeling itchy, so she would put more hairspray in it. Even when the itching got intense, she just applied more hairspray. But her husband finally found out about how bad the situation had gotten when he woke up one day, and his wife was still asleep. He tried to wake her up, but she wouldn't move. She had died in the middle of the night. The husband called the police, fearing that something unusual might have happened. But when her body was examined, they finally took out her bun. Inside her hair, they found something terrifying. They found a huge spider had gotten into her hair, made a nest, and laid eggs. When the baby spiders hatched, they bit through her skull and ate her brain. This is a scary story about the cabinet. Every family in every town in every country has one. It's a cabinet not particularly odd or out of place. The paint was peeling a bit on the corners and the knob was a bit loose. The inside smelled like dust and the paint wasn't the same as the kitchen walls. Once, a long time ago, you hid inside this cabinet during a game of hide and seek. No one told you it doesn't open back into your reality. Don't worry, you can't tell the difference, but everyone misses you. Have you ever felt like you've forgotten something but can't remember exactly what you forgot? Well, for this one woman, this feeling would lead to a terrifying discovery. She was on the bus on her way home from work one night when she was certain she left something behind in the office. She thought to herself, maybe it's nothing. She had a long day and she just wanted to go home for the night. But of course, she could have never expected the horrifying truth. This feeling of not being able to remember what she forgot became more and more intense. She thought about everything that happened that day. Her boss staring at her creepily, the secretaries gossiping. Then she bumped into a man on the bus. She quickly said sorry, but he ignored her. As the bus came to her stop, she stood outside her home and couldn't shake the feeling anymore. She had to go back to the office to find out exactly what she forgot. It was very late at night at this point, but she made it back. She ran up the stairs and opened the office door. But what she saw could only be described as unimaginable. As this woman slowly knelt down on the floor, she finally realized what she left behind. It was her body lying on the floor, strangled to death. After this, she'll never look at black coffee the same way again. A young married couple planned to go out for dinner, so they hired a babysitter for their daughter. But something horrifying happened soon after, something no one could expect. The babysitter found the couple's daughter sleeping, so she went downstairs to watch TV. Then she heard a loud bang and the phone started ringing. A cackling voice answered, black coffee, I'm in the bedroom." The babysitter ran upstairs and found the couple's daughter in a black shawl. She quietly took it off and went back downstairs. Then the phone rang again. Black coffee, I'm in the kitchen, I've got the baby." She ran into the kitchen and found the couple's daughter in a red wig. So she went around the house and disconnected all the phones. That's when her cell phone rang. Black coffee, I'm in the front yard." As soon as the babysitter went outside, she saw the couple's daughter sitting on the windowsill, wearing the black shawl and the red wig, cackling loudly. Then the babysitter felt a sharp pain in her back. When the couple came back from dinner, they found their daughter in the front yard eating her babysitter, and the dad said, "Oh God, not again." She could have never guessed what really happened in her basement. Once there was a girl named Brooklyn who moved into an old house with her parents, but there was one door leading to their basement and no one could open it. This made Brooklyn curious, so one day she looked through the keyhole, but she could have never expected what happened next. She saw something moving in the darkness, then quickly coming towards her. As soon as she jumped back, a screwdriver poked through the keyhole. Brooklyn was terrified. She screamed, "Mom, Dad, there's someone in the basement." But no one believed her. Until a few years later, she finally found out the truth, which was even more terrifying than anything she could have imagined. Her family had moved out of the house already, but Brooklyn returned to the area to visit an old friend. She walked by the house and said, "I used to live there." And her friend said, "Yeah, the screwdriver house." Brooklyn instantly had chills. She never told anyone about what happened. She asked, "Why did you just say that?" And that's when her friend told her the story. Shortly after the house was built, a husband, his wife, and their 4 daughters moved in. The wife passed away from a mysterious illness and the husband went insane. He unalived all 4 of his daughters with a screwdriver, then put them all in the basement. The next part in my 7 Deadly Sins series is gluttony. So here's a story of an incredibly powerful man whose love for cream-filled buns caused a very disturbing death. For European royalty, lavish banquets were pretty common, but no one enjoyed it more than the King of Sweden, Adolf Fredrik. It's very important to note that there's a traditional Swedish celebration every year called Fat Tuesday, where these banquets were especially important. During one of these banquets, Adolf Fredrik ate a meal including lobster, caviar, fish, sauerkraut, champagne, and much more. But what sealed his fate was that he ate 14 servings of cream-filled buns soaked in warm milk and cream. Afterwards, it was said that he had severe nausea and stomach pains. And on the 12th of February 1771, at age 60, the King of Sweden was declared dead due to complications in his digestive tract. And now he goes down in history, unfortunately, as the king who ate himself to death. The next part in my 7 Deadly Sins series is lust. So as I draw this, I'm going to tell you a true crime case about how a devoted husband's double life led him to murder his wife. In the late 90s, Craig Rabinowitz called the police when he found his wife's body in the bathtub. He said it was an accidental drowning, but people didn't believe that. People's doubts were proven right when the cause of death was ruled a strangulation. Then, what investigators found would shock them. Craig had the appearance of a successful, wealthy businessman and devoted husband, but he had a secret. He'd been spending all of his money on Summer, a dancer he met at a club. He'd become obsessed with her and would spend thousands of dollars a week on her. However, please note that Summer was not to blame. Craig's actions are entirely his own. But because Craig had spent more money than he could make, he needed a plan. He took out a $1.5 million insurance policy on his wife, naming himself as the beneficiary. Then he strangled her, and prosecutors think he dragged her body to the bathtub based on the bruises they found. Prosecutors also found a suitcase with thousands of dollars in cash ready, proving that Craig was ready to flee after his wife's funeral. And that's how a man's secret life led him to murder. The Clawfoot bathtub is a scary story about a young girl who is afraid that something evil is lurking in her bathroom. Ever since her parents bought the Clawfoot bathtub, Janie had felt uneasy whenever she went into the bathroom. Her father called it a vintage Victorian tub, but Janie suspected he had just picked it up cheaply from an old antique store, like most of their furniture. Something about the bathtub bothered her: the dark reddish-brown stains on the porcelain, or the way the cast-iron legs jutted out like the gnarled paws of a monstrous beast. Sometimes she imagined it standing up and scuttling out of the bathroom when her back was turned. Janie, almost 13, was already frustrated with her life. Her overbearing mother still treated her like a child, and her parents argued constantly. It seemed like every little thing sparked hours-long fights. Often, Janie cried herself to sleep with a pillow over her head to drown out the yelling. The chaos at home was driving her to feel as though she was losing her mind. Lately, Janie's unease about the bathtub had turned into something closer to terror. Every time she entered the bathroom, she thought she saw something move in the mirror's reflection. A fleeting shadow, or a dark figure lying in the tub. Once she thought she saw blood running from the faucet, but when she turned to look, the taps were dry. The worst was the feeling of being watched when she undressed for a shower. One night, as she bent down to pick up dropped soap, she lost her balance and fell backward into the tub. Suddenly, it felt as though invisible hands were holding her under the water. She kicked and struggled, finally freeing herself, gasping for air. She could have sworn she heard faint laughter echoing around the bathroom. The next morning, Janie went to the antique shop where her father had purchased the bathtub. The shop owner revealed a horrifying story. The Clawfoot tub had belonged to a Victorian-era serial killer, George Hay, who drowned young girls in it before dismembering their bodies. He was eventually caught and executed for his crimes. Terrified, Janie knew she had to convince her parents to get rid of the cursed bathtub. Janie ran home as fast as she could, only to find her father sitting alone on the living room sofa in an unnervingly quiet house. When she asked where her mother was, her father replied that she was upstairs taking a bath. He offered to check on her and went upstairs while Janie waited in uneasy silence. Moments later, she heard a series of clunks followed by slow, deliberate footsteps descending the stairs. Her father reappeared in the doorway, his eyes glazed over and an odd expression on his face. In his hand, he held a bloodied axe. "Your mother's finished," he growled. "Now it's your turn to take a bath."